Most app owners think that security isn't a problem until it is.
Hackers recently targeted her Facebook account along with other social media accounts.
Even to my Apple ID, they changed my password. They got into my phone. I couldn't make any phone calls or call or have internet on my phone.
Vanessa says she received a notification on her phone to verify her login, and that's when the takeover happened. She says hackers gained access to her bank account and made purchases. Security expert Roger Grimes with KnowBe4 says account takeovers happen every day.
It happens millions of times a day.
Grimes says use a password manager to strengthen your password.
It needs to be 20 characters or longer in order to make sure that it doesn't get broken by hackers. So we call that a passphrase, where you create a password that's something like Roger jumps over the brown cow.
Vanessa says she has not been able to gain control over her social media accounts and is still working with the bank to get her money back.
Passwords alone is not a security strategy. Mobile app security is not just using passwords anymore. It's bigger than that. And today we're going to talk about how using AI can help you detect some of those frauds faster, help it secure your mobile app, and potentially prevent threats from happening before they become a big issue. So if that's your jam like it is mine, we're talking about apps here. Join the fun. Security. Yes, I'm not talking about that big bouncer, the strong, beefy person at the club. I'm talking about security, things that protects your app from being breached. Data, information, user accounts, all of these things have to be protected. If you are offering a service to a user or a client, you need to secure it. So let's dive into a few ways as to how we're going to do it. Addressing the main concern, why you should be adding AI security into your app. Well, one, it can help you detect fraud. I don't know if you had your credit card or personal information compromised, but it happens regularly. And many times, you don't need to be doing anything different than what you're already doing. And with AI, it has the ability to detect when there are bad actors trying to robustly defeat the system. And that's what you need in your app. Number two, account protection. Passwords are great. Multi-factor authentication is something that you can have as well. It gives you that security. And protecting your account is something you really want to lean into. And another reason why you want to add that AI security is for risk-based alerts or notifications. And these you really want to tread lightly because you want them to do so without hurting the user experience. And that's something with the right strategy and with the right type of team and method to approach it, you can do this really successfully. I know you may be asking, what can AI actually monitor? What is the use of doing it? Well, one, AI can monitor login behavior. So if you're making multiple attempts and this brute force attack on trying to enter the system, it can monitor how many attempts have been made by a certain IP, by a certain bad actor. And that's something to take notice on. AI can also monitor device changes. So when you switch from one device, your laptop in this location, and then you shift to maybe your iPad in another location, those device changes can be monitored by using AI. And for those of you who shop online a lot, AI can also monitor transaction patterns. If you have a certain behavior like shopping online, if you're making consistent purchases on Amazon or Macy's or these different outlets, then AI can track those patterns and lean into that versus you making a large ticket purchase for an appliance on, let's say, Home Depot. These are things that are identifiers. You have broken a certain pattern. So now it's an outlier. AI can lean into that to investigate a little bit more. Additionally, bot activity. Yes, we've seen this a lot of times and largely on social. If you look at accounts that have, maybe one avatar and no posts, but they have a ton of following. Maybe it's a bot account or fake account creation. Even in the music industry where streams matter, there are bots being generated to boost up those streams and allow for more revenue towards artists or just different type of visibility. But you can use AI to kind of lean into that you have better control over what's happening in those accounts that are being created. The goal is visibility is key. And the more you see what's going on with your system, the better prepared you can be, and the more secure you can provide measures to lock things down. And that's really, really important. Now that we've outlined what those things are and how they could play a role, let's talk about how to actually add it into your app or your website. And I'm gonna grab my trusty iPad so that we can walk through this thing together. All right. But the first thing you want to do is identify some of the main risks that play a role into your accounts. We're talking about fraud. We're looking at fake accounts takeovers, payment abuse, spam, all of these things. Even if it's traffic, you really want to outline what that looks like for your application so that you have things to take notice on. It's one thing to look at user behavior and visitors to your site or application, but it's another thing to pay attention to what's actually happening. Traffic from bots, how you get spam. We've seen it in our email addresses, and this is no different. Okay, that's step one. Step two, you want to really map out some of the events that are risky. One, for example, login attempts, what that looks like and the process flow that your users would actually go through in terms of doing that. Any attempts for password resets, location changes, transaction spikes, if it's low or just a monthly minimal payment versus a high ticket purchase or a high transaction. These are things that you can identify as behaviors that can pose concern for an event like that. So then you have a list of ways that could be attempted to get into your system, and then you can do something about that. The sooner you do that, the better off you will be and the better protection you can provide. Step three, you want to track behavioral signals. Yeah, and this is important. And when we speak of behavioral signals, these are actually behaviors that your users would take. So let's say there's device fingerprinting or the login frequency. Maybe it's multiple times a day versus 1 day, or 1 day, one time per week versus consecutive times over a month. These things can give you a really good basis to know how a user is actually operating and working within your application. Session behaviors. Maybe it's a login and then a quick log out, or a login, we stay there, we go only to a payment section, we go only to pertinent information, then we log out, or we do some kind of irregular activity. Typing patterns. So the way they actually are using patterns on the keyboard or mouse behavior, sometimes even IP changes. And those things are really good signals to pay attention to. Step number 4, you want to set a baseline rule for these things. Okay? And what that is you want to set some simple fraud rules first. Okay? If this happens, then do this. If there are multiple login attempts, then do this. If there is a multiple password change request, then do this. And these are simple baseline ways to get to the point where you start to create solutions for what behavior is already happening. You do that first before you actually start to layer in any type of AI, because Once you do that, you now have set the standard for what happens manually. And then AI is an enhancement to improve on those things later. Okay. Step 5, now we're getting into the good stuff. You want to add AI anomaly detection. And what this means is AI now has permission to flag any behavior that's outside of what you've already identified. If it looks unusual compared to the normal patterns, AI can then flag it. And the fact that you set it as an anomaly means you've already learned what users are doing here. And then you're saying if any unusual behavior happens past this point, it might be something to take note of. That's when you add that AI detection. We're almost through. Step number 6, you want to then create response actions. You're looking at things to respond to when these events happen. Trigger, then an event, and then an action. So in this case, you're creating a response to those actions. You want to do maybe a step-up verification, like multi-factor or dual multi-factor, 2-step. You want to do OAuth. Maybe you want to do email verification. There's a few things that you can do. You can also do temporary blocks. These are when you send a magic link or a one-time sign-in link so that users have to log into their email address in order to get the link or the code and then proceed. You also can do fraud review alerting. Something we've done more in the educational space or the healthcare space is session timeouts. So if a user behavior is known to have a session that's 5 minutes, then we can create a timeout for that to happen, or unused activity or non-activity on the application, and time out that session. So there are a few factors that you can do to make sure you have a certain response when things happen. Number 7, and we're almost at the end, you want to then test this. And you want to test these false positives. And you want to do that very, very carefully. And what that means is when normal users, let's say they do a password reset, when they do it and it's actually an authentic way to do it, don't penalize those folks for actually doing it. Whether they're traveling from one location to the next, or they're switching devices at home, or they're living their best life. Don't penalize them for that. So I speak candidly on sharing or co-use, multi-platform use, multi-device sharing, stuff like that, where handoff is a thing, meaning you start from one device and your session continues on to a different one. That's an active thing, and it's an actual thing that users do regularly. So if I'm doing that in my home, but I switch rooms, or I go from one IP address to maybe I have a different server or modem linked to another place, my garage, or if I'm duplexed in a different area, you should not penalize me for doing that. So be mindful to test those false positives so that you can make sure that these are bad actors and not the good users that really want to use your product. And then the last tip, which is most important, is you want to monitor these things and continuously update. Threats normally don't stay the same. And threats, just like technology does, they evolve. So you want to be mindful of it and make sure that your security system evolves with the times. Okay. Now that I've given you the steps, now that I've broken it down, the benefits of this, they're wonderful. And you should be very, very aware of what this does for your application and for the users that are using it. 1, it offers better fraud protection. You're going to get that out of systems that you secure a bit more. That's a non-negotiable. You're going to have few fake accounts, few account takeovers if you do it that way. No longer are you fighting with folks on consuming an account and that you have to flag and put away or close out. You'll have fewer account takeovers if you are to implement these steps. Another benefit is you would improve the trust of those who are using your products. Okay? Users love to share, communicate, and be open about things that they enjoy. And if protection and security gives you peace of mind, they will happily share your product. You'll also have a lot stronger protection within the system and less manual processes to work through. As you start to automate and test these things, you'll start to see the fluidity, how things naturally happen, how they take shape because of some action. And because you've defined a baseline, you now know how to operate when things happen because you have a response plan in action. All good things. And then the last benefit to this is a safer and a better user experience. Now, don't compromise, take away a good user experience just to add AI and stuff into it. No, you complement the user experience by adding AI and letting that be a complement to your security. But if you do it right, you'll have a safer user experience for your accounts. You'll have a better one for the users you're catering to. And then you'll also make it easy for you to do more features and improve the product more because you're doing less of that. Yeah. See? And if all else fails, call them. They'll show up right away. All of this is grand to know and to implement, but without understanding some of the risks and challenges involved, you will set yourself up for high expectations and then miss sort of the things that you need to pay attention to as well. One challenge you need to pay attention to is false alarms. When you're looking at false positives in your testing cycle, these things can happen. It's just the nature of technology and how we actually implement those things. Be mindful and document what that looks like so that you can limit when it happens and know how to identify that over a bad actor. For those of you working with smaller applications, you'll have limited data to work from. Because you have a smaller sample size and a smaller system, you'll have limited metrics to go off of. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't. Something is better than nothing. And in the world of being secure, you need something to baseline things off of. Just be mindful that with smaller apps, you're going to have a limited subset, but you can still go from there. One of the biggest concerns is compliance and privacy. These are robust and these are really warranted, especially when you deal with digital products. If you're part of the ADA and you need to do 504 or HIPAA violations or, things that really drive your product, you got to be mindful of how you stay in compliance, regardless of what you start to add and what features you improve upon. That's very key. Balancing safety with a smooth user flow. You want to make sure that the flow and the journey that your user is taking to use your product is smooth. And it can be secure without compromising that. And that's the sweet spot. That's kind of what you want. And then the last challenge you're up against, your team or you looking at adding security as a one-time thing and not something that's ongoing. Threats happen regularly, and sometimes they can be more robust than past time. If you look at it like a flu virus, how fitting. Your cold in one season may be entirely different in a different season. Why? Because maybe that virus evolved and it got more aggressive. And so you have to respond with different things. Virus attacks, threats on your application is no different. So constantly evolving and improving. If you continue to do that, you'll have a well-secure, really defined application that's easy to use and protected. And that's what we want. So in summary, you found out about security and why you need to be adding that into your application and including AI on top of that. You learned about the benefits and why it matters, why you need to be adding it as opposed to thinking of it as an afterthought. We talked about some of the benefits and what that looks like and the challenges And then I also gave you step-by-step ways to do that. You can go out, build it on your own. And if you want to work with my team to actually help you do this, you can click that link below and let me know what you're working on. Let me know what challenges you are facing, and we could take a look at it as well. This is just a high level of ways to do it. There are certain platforms you can do it in, there's certain code bases, and there's certain features you can add to make sure that your app is that robust. Now, we won't go into those specifically today, but if you want to learn more about those things and you want me to give a video and cover those topics, I'll be happy to. Leave them in the comments below. We'll see you in the next one. And as always, your life has color, so make sure to design it that way. And if you want to learn about gamification, click this link. I've also added another link to the video that's recommended for you. Take care, and we'll see you in the next one.